Okay guys, hello, yes, welcome, we're finally doing it, the Kavari tutorial. We are gonna make some distorted, aggressive, disgusting beats. Okay, I was thinking of what to do with this one, and it kind of set me off on this rabbit hole thinking about one of the few plugins that I've ever used, Trash 2, iZotope Trash 2. It's a very fun distortion plugin that I know Kavari has used, and I think Arca has used, but here's the thing, it was discontinued. So every year or so I check to see if there's like some way to, get this old plugin. And maybe I was just misinformed, but it looks like finally there is an Apple Silicon version. Okay, but as I started to mess around with Trash 2 for the first time in many years, I obviously started to think like, oh, how could we do this in Ableton? And I think I found something really cool. I think I found a really cool way of doing it. So we're gonna make some super aggressive, distorted stuff. Very excited to dive in. Oh yeah, and I forgot to say, registration for my spring sound design course is now open. Each week we are gonna listen to and break down a track by one of my and hopefully your favorite artists. This season it is Death Grips, FK Twigs, Earth Eater, Machine Girl, Björk from Volcakira, and A.G. Cook. It's a great vibe, it's a lot of fun, and I would love to meet you. Okay, so let's dive into this. First things first, we need like a fairly aggressive drum loop to start with. Okay, I just have a drum rack here where I've made a very basic loop, but again, you wanna start with some stuff that's a bit aggressive. So I have this pretty big kick, and then a clap, and then you don't really need this, but I got in like a metal sound, because why not? Okay, so let me play this for you. Okay, so first things first, what I wanna do is actually look at Trash 2. So let's open that up. And you don't really have to understand what's going on down here, but I just want you to see all the stuff they have here. So there's a filter, there's Trash, which is kind of like a two-stage wave shaper sort of distortion thing. Another filter, again, just another EQ, convolve, compressor, and dynamics. Now, the cool thing about Trash, the thing that I feel like really set it apart was this convolve section, right? Where they had this kind of like convolution reverb sort of thing like built in, and that was like really unique about all of this. And they had all these different impulse responses that were kind of cool, including these mech animal ones, which were kind of, I don't know, famous to me. Okay, so this sort of got me thinking like, how can we recreate this convolve section? And the answer obviously is hybrid reverb, right? Because that's what hybrid reverb is. Okay, so let's do things from the ground up. We will add a fresh instance of hybrid reverb. Okay, now what made Trash 2 interesting was not just the convolver section, right? But all the different impulse responses they had. So I was actually able to go into the plugin and look at what those impulse responses are. So let me show you some of them. So here's a bunch that I've just dragged in. Okay, so they're just like these small clicks. So let's listen to some of these. I think we can make some little clicks like this, right? Okay, so I'm just gonna take something like a snare, and I'm just gonna chop the beginning, get rid of the fade, and then let's pitch this up. So we're gonna mess around with a bunch of these, but what you gotta make sure you do is once you make your little piece, you gotta click it and hit Command J to consolidate it. So I'm gonna go back here, and I'm just gonna drag this into our hybrid reverb. Okay, now let's listen to this. It's gonna be a little underwhelming, but I wanna sort of show you like the whole process, right? Okay, so it still kind of sounds like a reverb, right? So let's kind of focus this a little bit. So first things first, I'm gonna go down here and I'm gonna turn off the algorithmic section. So I'm gonna bring the blend down so we are just working with the convolution section. Then I'm gonna bring the dry wet up to 100, right? So it's just the convolution. Okay, so that's getting a little bit more interesting. Okay, so now let's go into the EQ and let's go to this, right? So we don't have that low cut anymore. Okay, and now we're getting some of our bass back in there. And let's just, I don't know, we'll boost like some of the mid highs or whatever. Okay, now obviously what we're missing is distortion, right? This is just the convolve section, right? So we're gonna keep it pretty simple with this. I'm just going to add in a saturator, and I'm gonna throw that onto wave shaper mode. We're gonna go drive up by 24, and then just turn down the output a bit. And then I'm gonna open this up and go to the color curve and the wave shaper and mess with this little. So I'm gonna bring the amount low down a little. I'm gonna bring this little bump over here, maybe make it a tiny bit wider, a little bit of curve, a little bit of depth. Okay, I mean, that's sounding pretty good. It's maybe a little too crazy almost, but sounding pretty good to me. Okay, so this is probably a good time for me to mention that you should probably put this saturator on like soft clip or a hard clip, or just be careful with the volumes here. Okay, so now let's start to get crazy with this. So first, the things we're gonna wanna mess with are the decay and the size, right? So the size is almost kind of like pitch, right? The decay is obviously how long things are. Just mess with all three of these, attack, decay, and size, right? So if we bring the size down, right, it's much more high pitched, and we can move and get some of our low end back. Right, but then let's try some other sizes, 50, 200, ooh, and then of course 500. Okay, so now let's bring down the decay quite a lot. Right, so that will kind of tighten things up a little as we get the size even bigger. Maybe we can mess with the attack a bit. Okay, so that's starting to sound pretty cool to me already, but obviously the magic of this is when we start to get other impulse responses in there. So let's just try out a bunch. I'm not like, there's so much you can do here. I'm promising you just different impulse responses, and then just messing with the size, decay, attack, and that EQ curve. Oh my God, it's like hours and hours of messing around here. Let's just try some of like the default Ableton stuff there. The really cool ones are these textures. Let's go to bubbles. Oh, let's go. Oh, that is so cool. So yeah, bubbles is insane. Chains, obviously, we gotta do chains. Chains, insane. Okay, now as crazy as those textures are, they obviously still sort of work, right? Like it still sounds like drums. So, as I always say, let's get crazy with it. Very excited, very, very excited. Let's get in this baby sound. I was getting some crazy stuff with this. Okay, resetting everything. Let's listen. It just stops. The sound just stops. I don't know what happened, but that is what happened to me before. Oh my God. What is even happening? Whoa. Oh my God. Like, we've summoned something here, you know, like in the spirit of Kavari, we've summoned something here. Okay, now when I was doing this, I intentionally didn't use like a kind of like 808, right? Something with more like harmonic content. What it means now is we can use our impulse response as something that kind of has harmonic content. So there was an impulse response in Trash 2 called Badger. So I was like, do I have anything do I have any Badger sounds, right? So I have this thing called synth. I have no idea what this is. It's just something I have. Okay, so let's drag that in. Right, and now we can sort of get some melodic stuff, which is interesting, but that's with size 20. And you may be noticing, right, that like by doubling and halving the size, I think it's kind of like we're going up and down an octave or something like that. So let's go back to 100. So there we go. Now we're doing bass. Now we're really doing bass. Okay, so let's drop. I'm just gonna mess with this. I'm not even gonna talk. So crazy stuff. And always remember that, like, I have that saturator really cranked. So if you are watching this and you're like, this is cool, but it's like not usable at all for the kind of stuff I want to do, like just roll off some of that saturator, right? Roll off some of the drive, move that color curve notch, right? Like move this kind of up here or whatever. Okay, so let's try another melodic thing. I'll get this like pinging sound. Very cool. You could just use this as like percussion, you know what I mean? And layer it back in with the original loop. Okay, so that is so much to mess with. I'm gonna show you two more things. I'm gonna show you two more things that I think are interesting. So one is now to blend this in with the algorithmic reverb. So we can bring that blend back to 50. Okay, so obviously it sounds very crazy because we have all the, the reverb tail. So what we can do is go to our algorithm and maybe go to tides. And then I'm gonna bring the size all the way down and the decay down a decent amount. Okay, I just wanna get that metallic resonance a bit up. So let's switch all the way to the algorithmic reverb. Just listen. No, we want less damping. Okay, I think what we really need to do is just move this color curve a bit up. I think that's what's causing everything to sound so crazy. Yeah, there we go. Nice. Bring that down a little. And blend. Yeah, there we go. And then let's bring up the high end. And then quartz can also be fun to play around with. If you are still here, I'm assuming it's because you have whatever, disease I have that makes you really enjoy these torturous sounds. So I'm gonna show you one last really crazy thing. And then you gotta go mess around with this. I'm not showing you any more stuff. You gotta go actually try this out. Okay, so let's go back here and let's start messing with the feedback and pre-delay. Yes, there we go. That's what we want. The beautiful sound of silence. Beautiful sound of silence. Okay, so feedback all the way up and now mess with the pre-delay. Okay, we gotta do some summoning here. We gotta do some real summoning. So I'm gonna mess with the blend a little. Someone in the comments is gonna explain how what I'm doing is like really a horrible thing that you should not do. Probably because I'm saying that based on the fact that this thing is, fully red. Okay, Ableton crashed. That does not happen to me very often. So yeah, be warned. be warned. Okay, so where were we? Back to summoning here. Okay, so this impulse response that I dragged in was not working so well. So let's go back to, I don't know, maybe some of the textures. Go to Rolling Rocks. Try another one of these. One of these shorter ones. Maybe, chains. Wow, this is crazy. Okay, so I know that we're supposed to be done with the tutorial, but let's go LFO on the pre-delay, go random, go over here, change this to remote, maybe go this one up to 100, down to 0, map this to feedback. Or actually, we want the feedback pretty high. So maybe I'll just this to 100 and this to like 50. Okay, let's see what happens. check our EQ. Maybe a little slower. Get the feedback even higher. Yeah, there we go. Now we're talking. Thank you. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time. I got nothing else to say.